Destructible Podcast.
What's up, party people, and welcome back to the Destructible Podcast. Not familiar hearing my voice, but as the manager, I've decided to take over just this episode. But today we are joined with the wonderful Mr. Smith, who is new to our school.
Hello.
And going to talk about some, what it's like first almost full year as a teacher.
Almost.
And some experiences, the past. You've had some history with recording and being in commercials. And
I have.
Yeah, so.
Where to begin?
I guess for people who listen and wonder, let's try to get into podcasting.
Yeah.
You have been in some commercials for the food co-op here.
I've been in most of them.
Most of them.
The last decade or so.
So,
maybe from the beginning. So I'm Jessy Smith. Hi. I started teaching at LHS and Hugh J. Gallen in October of this year. Or last year, I guess. Not something I ever thought I'd be doing,
especially since you went to school here.
Yes, so I'm an LHS alumni. I graduated in 2010. Before the room we're sitting in was the broadcast lab. This used to be Mr. Anderson's room.
Oh, really?
Back in the day. Yeah.
See, I would not have expected that.
Yeah. It wasn't divided like this.
So did he teach you here when he?
I had him for winter wellness one year in middle school, and then the next year I did bowling with Mr. Alberini, nice. Tyler's grandpa. Yeah. And Mr. Lafitte.
Nice. So I guess
Yeah. So
first year here.
So maybe like my path to creative stuff is worth retelling, and then sort of what I've been up to before teaching. But to get from Littleton High School student Mr. Smith to creative professional to teacher Mr. Smith,
So let's start there then.
There was some wild stuff. So I was a pretty aimless, directionless kid in high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life, and most of the time I was struggling to just pay attention. I found out later, mid 20s or so, that I have turbo ADHD, and probably would have had a much different high school experience had I been medicated properly.
Right.
And college experience too, honestly. So that's getting that diagnosis has helped me immensely in my professional life, because I was just to the point where I didn't even know where to start and applying for jobs after college. When I was LHS student Jessy Smith back in the day, I kind of bounced around from thing to thing, and I really kind of found my groove in the art room at the time, because where the academy is now is DB. Yeah. And Mrs. Larkham had a room down in the basement. Yeah. If you're looking toward the stairs from the gym over there, her room was the last one on the right. It probably still looks a little arty. And then I got really close with Mrs. Platt by the time I was in high school, and she wrote me a letter of recommendation that I still can't read without crying. And is really probably the only reason I got as far as I did. She saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, really, and had a hard time seeing in myself even through college and for the first few years after college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to the School of Visual Art in New York.
Oh, wow.
I lived in dorms, but
Right.
lived in Manhattan for 4 years. And interestingly, I just found out, because I've always sort of regretted going to a private art school. Like, I wouldn't do it any other way if I could do it over again, but it made for like a challenging time in my 20s trying to catch up with student loans and that kind of thing. But I just found out that a lot of the private schools around here, because of course White Mountain School just shut down, which is sad.
Yeah.
So now people are looking at other private schools to maybe transfer to. A lot of them have tuition like double or 3 times what I was paying to go to my private art college in Manhattan and live in Manhattan for 4 years, which is pretty wild. I don't think anybody should. It shouldn't take 6 figures to send someone to school in rural New Hampshire. But that's a whole other thing for another day. So SVA is pretty cool. It's one of the top art schools in the country. I found out about SVA here, actually. Mrs. Platt had an undergraduate, I think, catalog just kicking around in the art room. And I don't know if I had approached her and told her I was thinking about art school, or if I just found it one day. But by the time I was in my senior year, I was either going to go into audio production or graphic design. And I ended up going graphic design because my dad had this vision of me just being like a starving musician. So I guess a starving artist is preferable. I was pretty nervous leaving here. Like, I had an okay portfolio, but
you weren't like 100% on.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% that I was gonna stick with graphic design. The first year in any like visual medium at SVA that isn't film or photography is like 6-hour studio classes of conventional art anyway. So for my freshman year there, I was in a 6-hour oil painting class once a week. I was in a 6-hour sculpture class once a week, which was a trip. I'll have to tell you about that sometime. And a 6-hour illustration class once a week. And the illustration and the oil painting class had a lot of overlap, except my oil painting professor was this dude named, what is his name? Dennis something. Was like a really wild character who I think helped me decide that I didn't want to be a painter.
But hey, I mean, you're graphic design and audio now, technically.
Yeah. He had been pushing me toward painting, because I was like super edgy teen, kind of doing these like wild, abstract, like not even really thinking about it, just sort of feeling it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, it's a crime for you to go into graphic design."
So what got you into it then? Like, what was the actual like technology part of like?
Well, I'd always been into computers. I had a computer in my room, growing up, which is kind of wild because it was. I think I got my first computer in my room in like 2004. And
they weren't that advanced.
They weren't that advanced, and it was like a little more Wild West than it is now. Like, there were online communities and stuff, but they weren't like centralized in the same way they are now. Like, there was no like subreddit for the thing you liked. You had to like go and find the like atomized community for the thing you'd like. So I ended up on like this website called Gamertag Database.
Yep.
Which was right after the original Xbox launched live, the live beta. I think I was in the original Xbox Live beta.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow.
they set up, it was like a third-party website where everyone would like put their gamer tag, and you could like set up a profile, basically what the dashboard is now.
Yeah.
But before there was anything like that integrated in Xbox. So that was one of the like first big ones. And then I got into Neopets, weirdly enough, for a while. And that's where I got my first like real taste of HTML.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was a DB student over here, we had a very, 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 very strong internet filter. And we wanted to play Flash games. We wanted to play like Line Rider and
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
It's crazy how Adobe Flash doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's just gone.
It's just gone. And I had to learn Flash twice in school. That's another story too.
Yeah.
So I would set up, I think it's called Weebly now, but back in the day it was called Freewebs. And I would build Freewebs websites that were all called some version of Rabid Gorilla. just a name that got like stuck in my head when I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I played Whack-A-Mole with Adam Reitzma for like 6 years.
Nice.
Just setting up Flash websites for everyone in the school to use. And that, the Neopets thing, and then MySpace by the time I was a freshman, where you could like
It was pretty popular.
fully customize your profile with HTML, or you could even like, we would do this thing where you could like put an iframe over your entire MySpace profile and have like a website as your MySpace profile.
Huh. So back then, like graphic design, a lot of it was just HTML.
A lot of it was HTML, and then I got into another website called Envision Free that was like a kind of like open source fork of Envision Power Board. But they had like this whole community that was like into making themes and customizing these like internet forums, like early Reddit basically. And that's where I really got into like Photoshop and GIMP.
Right.
I started with GIMP actually, and then moved into Photoshop. Like they would call them like signatures, and it's basically like an email signature underneath whatever your forum post was. And I would do those for people, and really got into it that way, and then kind of like channeled that into art once I got up here. So my portfolio was like a mix of like conventional acrylic paintings and like graphite drawings I had done upstairs in the art room.
Yeah. And
some like collage-y stuff, and then some like very, very online kind of gamer adjacent stuff. And SVA was kind of a trip because I didn't really have like the design chops that a lot of my classmates had, and I definitely did not have the money that my classmates had. Yeah. So by the time I graduated, I had kind of like shut myself in, because I couldn't keep up with dude whose dad is executive producer on CSI. Like, I can't go to the club and get a bottle with you every night, dude. It's just fair. It can't happen.
It's fair.
But it ended up being a good thing because it really forced me to put my nose down and really get on my grind. So I similarly kind of like aimlessly worked my way through SVA for those first 3 years, and then got my stuff together. My senior year, I got connected with this dude, Sean Hastow, who was an art director, which is basically like you have a junior designer, a designer, and then like a senior designer on your design team, and then the art director will lead like all the little teams of designers for whatever. And Business Week is a magazine. He was an art director there, and then my other professor my senior year was this dude Paul Sayre, who is I call him like the most famous graphic designer no one outside of graphic design has ever heard of. He's done like most of the Penguin Classics books you've seen. He's in the New York Times probably almost every week, doing like editorial illustrations, and just like a real designer's designer kind of guy. And I don't know how he would feel about me saying this, but he was kind of like my design inspiration, and he and I would like argue all the time in class because I was still like an edgy 22-year-old and thought I knew everything. And one of my favorite memories of Paul is I was like ranting about design and how it should be this and not that, and he was like, you sound like a crazy person on the subway right now. You know how like you know how like people like will just sit in the subway and like stare at the wall and scream about nothing. He's like, that's what you sound like right now. And I remember being like so offended at the time, and then like without even missing a beat, he's like, here, this is what you sound like, and he pulls up this slam poem by this dude named Jesse David Bernstein called Come Out Tonight. That is so weird, like Bukowski adjacent, really. Yeah. But I was like, oh, this dude totally gets me, one. And two, he's like very punk rock about how he approaches everything in design, but he still is like designing. He's not just, a lot of times in the world of graphic design, whenever someone is trying to like break the mold, they'll make the whole thing about the mold and how they broke it. Paul breaks the mold, but he's still making whatever he's supposed to be making. He's not like breaking the mold for the sake of breaking the mold, you know what I mean? And that's, I think I would say sort of how I've tried to like live my career since then. Yeah. I had an interview at BuzzFeed right after school that did not go well.
No?
No, I
what happened at BuzzFeed?
Applied because I really needed a job at that point.
That would be a good job too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been. It was weird. It was like right on the cusp of BuzzFeed being like what we thought to be like a spam site.
Oh yeah.
And it was like nothing but like spam and quizzes. And then like BuzzFeed News launched, I think, the next year, and like Shane and Ryan, if you're familiar, and the Try Guys. That was all like 2015, and I had interviewed in 2014. So they brought me in, and I'd like shown them my portfolio. And by the time I had finished at SVA, my portfolio was so weird that it got me a lot. It got me a lot of interviews, but I didn't really know how to defend it at all. So I bombed that interview. And then I had another interview at MTV. This dude, Richard Turley, an Englishman, Richard Turley, had asked me at SVA's big portfolio review they do for seniors, where like they would invite like all these people from industry. Yeah. And then we all had like our books, basically, because that's what we would make. We would make like our portfolio book. And I forget exactly how he said it. He said something along the lines of, "This is very interesting. Why don't you come down to Viacom for a meet?"
So you've had a lot of big job opportunities then.
I have.
I mean, MTV, BuzzFeed, all these, like, these are like name brand companies here.
Dumb me. Dumb 22-year-old Mr. Smith didn't realize when Mr. Turley, who was very nice and gracious, no disrespect to him at all whatsoever, but when he said come down for a meet, that is tea and crumpets for come in for an interview.
Yeah.
So I like show up for this meet that I think is like
just a normal chat,
just us talking maybe like about what he thinks I could do there, and I'm meeting with like a VP who's like, okay, let's look at your book, and I'm like, my book? What?
So that didn't end up too well.
Yeah, that one was really weird. And then I ran out of money in New York, so I came home and
back here.
Back here. Yeah. I had originally been planning on going back, but I like had just gotten out of a relationship down there, and then started something new up here, and I was like citied out too. I realized pretty quickly that
it wasn't for you. or?
Yeah, it's just too much like adrenally for me. I was like anxious all the
that
time.
can tend to happen.
And I'm not like an anxious person, typically. I mean, you see me drink like 3 Monsters a day, and very rarely do I ever get like anxious or weird about it. But I was in a state by the time I was done in New York. So I came home, worked the jobs I had been doing over summers and in high school for a while. I think I worked at like Hoots in Lincoln for a minute, and worked at the Aubuchons in Littleton before it closed. And eventually, I think that next fall...
You hit the co-op.
No, I took a job at a place that just closed last month, actually. Upper Valley Press in North Haverhill.
Oh.
And we were doing corporate grocery store flyers there. And that was like an actual printing press. So they had like a giant printer that's like the size of the Volkwing, basically, just running constantly.
Yeah, all the printing presses are seeming to just disappear now.
It's a tough business and a dangerous one too. Like, you need a lot of experience to run one of those offset heat presses.
Oh yeah,
because they'll suck a person right in before you even know like what's happened. And that job was a big learning experience, just on in terms of what to expect from the creative industry, and like how to put this diplomatically.
I mean, I'm sure it was different.
It taught me very quickly how much BS, for lack of a better term, I'd be willing to tolerate, and it wasn't a ton.
I mean, I'm sure it was different, being on a printing press versus...
Oh, yeah, totally.
Something.
So we were, like, crammed into, like, a side room that I think used to be, like, a storage closet. And it was, like 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah.
Do you know Ms. Sorjadakis, who helps coach, like, field hockey and stuff? She was there with me for a while. My best man at my wedding, Jeremy Howard, was like the project manager. He is a software engineer now, because the job we had been working on, I think I can say this now that they're out of business. The job we had been working on, they underbid. So it was like 3 people working on a job that an entire ad agency did before us, like a 90-person ad agency.
So it didn't get done?
So, no, it got done, but we had to cut all of the corners constantly, and even cutting all of the corners constantly would take us 18 hours.
Oof.
That's
rough.
To do it. So I would show up there at like 7 in the morning some days and not leave until like 4 the next morning.
Yeah.
And I was I used to joke that I was like close to puking blood all the time, because it was just like, it's not anything you want to do. It's not a way to live. It's entirely unsustainable, but the overtime was so nice. I'm sure that didn't help them stay open. So eventually I had like a huge falling out with them, because they had unrealistic expectations of what someone could do on that kind of work schedule.
So when did you get into the audio part of like food co-op and the ads?
Actually, my first audio job was my senior year here. I interned at WLTN down the hill.
Yeah.
And that was like me doing the morning show with Phil for a semester. I think the fall semester of my senior year.
So you were kind of known.
And then in the winter and into the spring, and I think through that summer, I simulcast all the baseball and basketball games in Littleton and all the hockey games in Berlin. So that's when I really got into broadcasting. That's when I learned how to do this kind of stuff. And then I got to flex that again all through school, because all my buddies would be working on their like student films and stuff.
Yeah.
And their audio is just dismal. So constantly like going through and finding noise and getting that kind of thing. And then by the time I was done at Upper Valley and up at the co-op, they had been basically outsourcing all the ads, like just sending scripts or telling WLTN what they needed to advertise and letting them do it. So I was like, let's just do it. I can just do all of these. So I would just wing most of the co-op ads. And I would like record like 10 minutes and cut it down to 60
seconds.
Yeah. Like record 10 minutes of me just riffing like the same
it's Jessy from the food co-op.
Same kind of thing over and over again. Right. Or like the robot one.
Yeah.
I have so many versions of that robot one that were killed. There's one where the robot like locks all the doors of the house and fills it with gas or something, like crazy stuff. And I think that was like the funnest part at the co-op is it was so low pressure that I could just try stuff all the time and see what stuck.
Yeah. You got paid for that too, or?
Yeah. So that was hourly at the co-op. Definitely like not.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be like big time like influencer money. But...
Yeah. It wasn't big money. I love the business model.
Yeah.
Over there, like everybody kind of having a stake in it. And my wife is allergic to pretty much every food.
Oof.
So the employee discount definitely helped, and I really believe in the mission. I grew up in an immigrant family. My grandmother was Lebanese, and so food was like always very, very important for us. It was like any family gathering or whatever, it was always like based around food and what we were eating and who's bringing what and who's cooking what. And I never like set out to be a grocery store advertiser.
It's not in the book, but sometimes it just happens.
Yeah. It is funny though, I will say, when I was leaving Littleton, I remember being kind of bummed, thinking that I would never be able to come back.
Right.
And going.
This is when you went to New York?
Yeah, this is when I was leaving my senior year, and I remember like thinking in the back of my head, man, it would be so cool if the food co-op ever got big enough to like necessitate having a designer.
Yeah.
And then like I get back and I'm.
Yeah, you're just the ad. You're the ad campaign.
Yeah, I'm doing design at the co-op, and weirdly, kind of similar situation for this job. Like I remember having conversations with Mrs. Platt. Like,
yeah,
I wish I could. Even when I was in school, I wish I could just like finish this bachelor's degree and teach. And of course you can't do that. But what you can do is work for like a decade in the industry and then teach.
Yeah.
If you have a bachelor's degree. And there's like a few other things I have to do in the background, but mostly it's give the Department of Education.
Well, I mean,
like nickels and dimes over and over.
Yeah. For being a teacher, I mean, you came in through. It was like already partway into the year.
Yeah.
So you had to adjust to that, and then. You know, even just like picking it up, and we actually did learn stuff this year too. So,
nice.
It's pretty,
I'm glad to hear that.
Good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's been a challenge. School looks a lot different, like in terms of expectations and
I bet.
And just the overall vibe.
You think they were more strict now or back then?
Far less.
Far less strict now?
Far less. Yeah, I'll tell you.
A lot of the time, it seems like people don't care now.
Yeah. Well, I think people are like, they don't know what to do with you guys.
Yeah.
We definitely started giving them a lot of like similar guff than you guys give us now.
So I guess you can just see after like 10 or 15 years how it just never stopped and how it only grew.
Yeah. I think you guys, like, kids got advanced faster than education could, like, keep pace with you guys, basically. Yeah. Just, like, random. When I was here, like, lockers were not optional.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing with that, with the whole lockers, they were always mandatory. And back when we were in middle school, everyone in high school had one. After COVID hit, everyone started carrying around their backpacks, and people just said, you know what, this is actually just easier because you forget something, you have to go to your locker, do that. But it just transitioned into that, and now nobody uses a locker.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like I said, you used to go to school here, now you teach here. How does that relate to just, like, your life and how it came back in a circle? But
well, I told you before how I'd, like, mentioned it to Mrs. Platt in passing,
right.
Before she was, like, really sick.
But I'm sure you, like, never expected to work here.
Never expected to do it, and honestly, when Mrs. Cox, who's the CTU director now, was trying to get me to come and interview for this job, I ignored her calls for like 2 months.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like,
there's no way.
There is
I'm
absolutely
going back there.
no way. No way. And I will say I had like a mild existential crisis my first day. I think
all the PTSD probably of being back in the building and
yeah. Yeah, like I have this very clear memory of being like standing in the dark room and like the thought just like blowing over my mind, like, what if you die here? And I'm like,
listen,
you're gonna be stuck here forever.
Why? Because you were in this building once and now you're here again?
Uh-huh.
Well, I look at it like that too, in a sense, because not only do I go to school here, I also work here sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I can't get away from this building. That's why sometimes I prefer to go to Lakeway. But then also, I had that trauma moment at Lakeway, whereas if I hadn't been there in 4 years, and you go there, and I was looking out the window, this was last summer, I was working there, I looked out the window, and you see all the kids from summer school, they're playing outside, and I just sit there, and all the thoughts come back to my head of, that used to be me.
That used to be me.
I was playing outside, I remember, like, some of the moments, too, and it's like, wow, dude. The fact when it hits you is like...
It's wild. I've had a lot of those being here, especially down where we are, because that really hasn't changed much that way, aside from losing windows in my classroom.
Yeah.
Which I'm still salty about.
There used to be more windows?
Yeah, that whole wall was windows.
Oh, wow.
And they went into that hallway there.
Yeah.
Where the bathrooms are, and where the bathrooms are now, like where that door is that connects Old Voke to New Voke there, that was an exit. That went out into I think, the lower parking lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like, the school's, definitely changed since you've been here.
And, Lakeway too, like...
Oh, yeah.
Like you were talking about that playground moment. I definitely had those more so right after I was done here, because we had what did they call it? The playscape that had like that corkscrew yellow thing. I don't know if you guys had that.
The playscape at Lakeway?
Yeah. The lower
yellow. Well, they rebuilt the whole they rebuilt that whole playground.
Yeah.
And when they did that, that's when I was in school.
Okay.
So I don't.
And
think
then
I had that.
The upper part was this thing that was basically just 4 slides, but it was in the shape of a brontosaurus. We called it the dinosaur. And then I think the rainbow's still up there.
They got rid of one of them.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess an incident when I was there in school where people were like jumping off of it on purpose and like actually getting hurt and like rolling.
Yeah, we would have like an arm break a year.
Yeah, so
and they like would ban us from it like every other year.
They just decided to get rid of it and they made a new one that's a lot safer.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So that looks completely different. This building looks completely different. So that helps a lot, I think, in not feeling so weird. But there are a lot of people here that were here, like when I was here. Like I was really close with the nurse when I was.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
When I was your age, Mr. Smith was the principal. Time is a flat circle in that way, I guess.
Dude, he's been the principal forever.
He has been.
He's been the principal. Then he wasn't, but he was still technically the principal.
The CTC principal, yeah.
So,
yeah, I don't know. I will say that in a way that I never anticipated. This whole thing, like coming back here, has been very therapeutic for me.
Oh yeah.
Even just like in seeing you guys all interact, it kind of gives me perspective for like all of these things that still kind of feel like
because in the
major
end,
life events.
It probably doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
No, it was. I mean, I graduated 14 years ago, but
right. So it's been near 15 years. But
yeah, still feels pretty fresh. And there were like moments. I think everybody has like moments in high school that are like,
that you just don't forget.
This like colors my whole life. But seeing you guys like be in high school, I guess, has given me some perspective on a lot of those, and in a way that's like, oh, you don't have to like carry what's her face not liking you sophomore year around your entire life. You know what I mean? Like,
fair.
You don't have to.
So I mean, you just look back at your high school experience and go, why'd I do that? Or I could have done this easier.
Yeah, or even like, God, this teacher I really liked, I never connected with them.
Right.
I feel like they must have hated me. Mrs. Lafitte actually is a really great example of that, where I like really liked Mrs. Lafitte. I was always like a huge history nerd, but we never like clicked when I was in school, and I honestly didn't even think she would know who I was until I started back here again. And she was working here, which I did not expect, because she retired.
You.
Yeah, she was like, hey, how are you? Weren't you in New York? Oh my gosh, yes, Pierre and I lived in Queens, and we talked about New York for like an hour my first week back, and it was like so cool. And even being a teacher and like...
And I had that same experience going back to Lakeway.
Yeah, right?
I mean, obviously it wasn't 15 years, but still the fact of all of them, they're like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
It's the fact that you haven't seen someone in a long time, and then...
Yeah, it's cool. It's given me like a whole new perspective even on myself. Yeah. Even like being a teacher now, and knowing that sometimes I like just have to shoo you guys off so I can get to something else. And remembering like being shooed off and like being the like sensitive, creative dude I am, like getting my feelings hurt a lot of the times for no reason.
Well, you know, I don't know what it is, but like in my opinion, since you've been here, I feel like you fit in pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, almost everyone can relate, and it's like you're actually a pretty cool teacher.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
But
probably
like,
my favorite.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
That part's been really cool too. Just like being able to connect with you guys and like feel like I'm making a difference is nice, because slinging food is fun, but at the end of the day, I was still selling lettuce.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I was still like trying to get people to come down to a sale or something, and there's only so much connection that you can be made.
And
if
like
things
you're
are
still
like
the
that
same,
transactional.
You're still the same guy.
Yeah.
You just, you know, it's just different now.
Yeah.
But I mean, one school year down, right?
One school year down. One more day. One more day.
Yeah, we're at the end of the school year.
Oh my god.
But
yeah.
What do you think, right? What do you think? You've had almost basically a full school. Let's just say you've been here for pretty much a year.
It's
a school year.
It's been a blast. My biggest I think challenge is just having like so much and
to do, especially coming in like
so little time. Like I could use.
You could use the summer, man.
I could use the summer, and I could also use like, instead of having I don't know, like my middle school classes, I could use like an extra prep time or something to like just figure out. We have so much stuff. I don't even know what half of this does.
Well, that's the thing too.
We've got this switch that powers all these Ethernet ports in here, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how to get it to spit some internet out of it.
You tried that earlier.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't work. But yeah, so it's not like you like you're just like, it's not like, all right, a new teacher coming in, but it's different because you came in late, Plus, you have more than one classroom to manage.
I have more than one classroom to manage. I'm an alum, which I've realized makes things a little weird, especially for people that had me when I was a kid. Like, there have definitely been times where someone in a position of power will speak to me like I'm like 15 years old, and I have to be like, adult, professional, 32, hi.
Remember, you're not teaching me anymore.
Yeah. So that's been an interesting challenge,
but you also control the coolest rooms in the school.
That's true.
The film studio.
The
graphic design, which
I
lab. Think by next year you're gonna have it down. I mean,
yeah.
You're gonna get all new IMAX. We're gonna get all new, hopefully.
Fingers crossed on IMAX, because we really need them.
Yeah. I just think you needed some time to get stuff ready, and they didn't really get that to you because you kind of just were thrown in, you know. Literally, when you were here. So, like,
you guys were all here waiting to take
classes.
The first
literal month or whatever it was that you weren't here, we were literally just sitting in that room. Nobody had knew what would happen with the previous teacher, and I won't say, but nobody had knew what was going on. Everyone was sitting here, and then after like 3 weeks, they're like, "Yeah, we're just gonna throw you in aviation."
Which was actually great.
Which was good. It was actually something, and it was helpful. And then I remember us being in aviation, and you just happened to join the class one day. And we had never seen you before. But, I mean, with that little parachute project thing we did.
Oh, yeah.
That was, like, the first time I actually got to engage with you. And
yeah,
I didn't even know you were going to be a teacher at that time. I thought you were just a guest visiting for a while.
I think Dre was the first kid to talk to me, and then it was either you and Dave or Chris and Brody. I can't remember, but two and three anyway. And yeah, that was a good first foray, and of course, Mr. Brown is like a master. It's so helpful even just to watch him command a room, because that's a skill I did not have.
And then, I mean,
coming here, and I've slowly, I feel like I'm gaining it, but definitely not in our graphic design class. Oh my god.
Well, like I said, I mean, I thought you were a guest. You came into the room. And then he's like, well, he also knows graphic design. And then he said you were going to be a new graphic design teacher. But for some reason in that moment, I didn't process that you were going to be like down in that classroom full time. And then it wasn't until actually second semester when I came into your class. And I was like, oh, hey. And you're like, yeah, I'm here full time. But you were moving stuff around. You went from your desk being here to here to here, all different places. And just... It was
just trying stuff out, and cleaning through a pile that went back to 2003, like the pile itself, and then the stuff in the pile went back to like 72, or something. So it was just like a mountain of stuff that should have been cleaned out in 2003, and should have been cleaned out in 2010, and should have been cleaned out the first time Mr. Last Guy retired.
Yeah.
Not that last guy, but the other last guy. In like 2015, and should have been cleaned out the second time in like 2018. And just never did. And then there was some other stuff that was extra bonus mess. That had to be taken care of. And then another aspect of this, I guess I didn't anticipate, is just like building the culture of a classroom.
Yeah. Definitely.
There's definitely like a Jimmy, like GYMY.
Yeah.
Kind of vibe to
how everyone always wants to go to the gym.
Everyone always wants.
I don't know what it is. I feel like everyone's more athletic now.
Yeah.
Like maybe back then people weren't as like. Well, I don't know obviously because I wasn't there, but I feel like as time is going on and probably will, the more everyone's gonna be more active. I say that, but then people are like getting more involved in video games and stuff too. But
yeah, I think the balance is back in a good way, and like I don't mind letting you guys go to like run it out
right
in gym class. I think it's good. It's like what teenagers' bodies are like craving. Yeah, other than like all of the food all of the time.
And just everyone sitting down playing Roblox every day for like 24 hours.
Yeah. Roblox, dude. Maybe we should finish with this anecdote, but one of the first like swinging my weight around things I tried to do was I made this like big stink about Roblox because
You hated it?
Literally cannot get my middle schoolers to do anything other than Roblox. If you're a regulator and you're listening to this podcast, Roblox should be regulated like nicotine or crack. It is a problem.
Yeah, so for all the Roblox moderation and all the people who work there.
I emailed Mr. Champagne and I said, can we please block Roblox? And I can't even remember exactly what he said. I got an email back that was laden in the only way I can describe it is an experienced fear, like a fear that
if you block Roblox,
every
student in the entire school is going to come at you.
Yeah,
and it's going to be horrible.
He was like,
Who told you? Who told you to do this, Mr. Smith?
Are you sure you want to block Roblox? Well, I can do it, but
you might
you really want to make sure you're sure that that's what you want to do.
And then you had middle school class, and you're like, maybe I don't want to.
And I was like, I think he's trying to talk me out of getting Roblox blocked.
Just because every middle schooler would be at your door.
Well, it's crazy. Like, who needs Xbox Game Pass when literally every game ever made has just been rebuilt inside of Roblox? It's come a long way for what used to just be like a Minecraft clone.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like nothing
the game's
related in it anymore. Even.
Well, it was supposed to be like Legos.
Yeah.
Literally, it was supposed to be Legos, but on a computer.
Right.
That's literally what it was made for. You were supposed to actually build stuff in there, like Minecraft, with Legos, and you were supposed to be a Lego figure, but ended up being something.
Everything.
Literally everything.
Yeah.
You find remakes of literally anything in there.
Yeah, literally everything. Literally everything. The ones that really blow my mind are like the FPS remakes because the recoil
some of them are realistic too.
Are insane. Yeah, they're nuts. They're nuts. But it's like you've got some derpy looking Roblox character like holding like a photorealistic AK-47. It's like insane. It's nuts. It's nuts. Roblox.
Anyways,
ask about it.
Moving on from that, it's been great to have you. On the podcast and as a teacher.
Thank you for having me.
I'll have one more year here next year. Hopefully, I'll be involved in some more stuff, graphic design, and
I'm excited to see what we get into next year. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun,
especially since you'll hopefully be at least more established than you are now, and maybe get some kids off in games.
Yes, yeah,
that's the hope.
Yeah, definitely no games on the IMAX. I don't know what we're gonna do about the laptops,
but yeah, thank you for sharing. Not everyone wants to come on here and willingly share.
Thank you for having me.
But yeah, it's been great, and
absolutely.
Jessy Smith, everyone. And we will see you all very, very soon in another episode of the Destructible Podcast. So until next time, stay listening, and we'll see you guys later.